So, Jack, we just sprung this podcast on you. We apologize for no preparation, but we like to keep things raw and fresh here. So, thanks for being flexible.
Anytime, of course.
Yeah, anytime. So, you work at Andreessen. You previously worked at Meta. You had a sports career where you almost went to the NFL, and you were a kicker for Penn. Quite a fantastic brain and athleticism. So you're quite multi-talented. Can you introduce yourself to the audience and talk about where you are today and what you're looking at with Andreessen?
Yeah, of course. Jack. So I grew up in Philly. I'd say my life is a tale of two cities. Grew up in Philly, where I learned how to be competitive and try to win everything that I want to do. That's where the sports career spawned. Started in soccer, went into football. Grew a love for sports statistics and just generally predicting the world through data, which led into statistics understanding at large, and then eventually machine learning, AI, and tech. It wasn't until I got into San Francisco did I get the tale of the second city, which was a religious fascination with the technological sphere. I felt that Philly was great at preparing me for, going hard, trying, drive, those sorts of things. But the config file of the city didn't really align with what I thought was valuable, which was just like merit, ambition, and like making the world a better place, which is what San Francisco is all about. So I got to SF. I was like, all right, I'm changing my entire career. I'm going to try and get into tech, spend a lot more time learning how to code, getting more into like the hard technicals of like data science, entrepreneurship, startups, those sorts of things, change my info diet all around that. Became really psyoped by the idea that technological abundance is a force for good. It's probably one of the greatest levers to improve like humanity at large. So when I was leaving college, I built up a lot of like self-taught like coding skills, a bunch of side projects, things like that. And then wanted to join a place that what I thought was on the forefront of the next generation of technology. Insert Oculus. It was right after the Quest release, put on a VR headset for the first time, and it was immediately clear to me that this was the future. It was like iPhone moment, walk through first steps, like this is it. I will do whatever it takes to join. So this is similar. So like what I did was I worked at Meta as an intern and then got a full-time offer. And then I got to Oculus, and I got to Meta, and they recruit for teams while you're there. But Oculus was not recruiting for the team when I joined. Like Meta just launched, and despite its product success, was not like selling as much, and they hadn't figured out the internal logistics on hiring people. So they didn't have space for me. But I just sat at the desks until they gave me a small job to do. And then I did that well enough to get like a full-time job. Started off doing like crash reporting and analytics, that sort of stuff. Eventually did a good enough job to continually move up, get more responsibility, doing a lot of the performance and hardware, software release data work to automate a lot of our releases from V8 to V30 and then the Quest 2. That was a ton of fun. Learned a lot about data science and tech there. Was there for about 2 years working on that product. And then eventually what I thought was like acquired the data science Thanos stones, learned from all of the best data scientists in the world at Facebook, and then wanted to expand more horizontally my impact across tech. So now I work at A16Z, started off on the consumer team. Now I'm on the games team. My focus is primarily on AR, VR, games infra, and AI. AR, VR for reasons, as you might imagine, games infra, because I'm really fascinated in tech, and games is usually one of the first applications of really interesting tech, hence like GPUs, browsers, those sorts of things. And then AI, this general fascination with how data explains the world. Started off with statistics, then came into AI, small data to large data. And yeah, that's where I sit today. So my job primarily is to find, source, pick, and win the best deals in those spaces. So yeah, that's what I'm up to now.
Can you share some of the investments you made?
Yeah. So some of the investments that I've made, I'd say almost my job is a little bit of like games X something. So like some investments include like Prisms VR, which is like VR X EdTech. Something like Ready Player Me, which is like games X infra. That's an avatars as a service solution for the metaverse. Something like Snapser, which is like AWS for games, or something like, actually I can't say, but like a whole bunch of AI companies that are still in stealth. I did this company called Carry First, which is a mobile games publisher for Africa, Tencent of Africa, or something like Voldex, which is a UGC games publisher, publishing games on Roblox and Fortnite. So those are some of the deals. Oh, and then also things like Gym Class VR. Gym Class VR is like basketball in VR, and then Alta VR, which is which built a township tale, and we're building like virtual worlds. So yeah, those are some of the deals.
I'm an investor in Township. I didn't realize that. Cool.
Nice.
Nice. And so where do you see the future, like with generative AI overlapping with AR and VR?
Yeah, so there's two things. There's one, which is generative AI is really useful at helping create things faster, augmenting the creative process. There's two really good examples of this, which are, say, the Coca-Cola generative AI ad. If you look through the how it's made of that video, you'll see how it helps improve like a general like advertiser and making something that was not possible before. Or something like Lupe Fiasco writing a better rap song with the help of AI. And he goes through the entire creation process alongside of a text editor. Then there's also the ability for people to create that weren't able to create before. AR VR is a very complicated creation process. All of the dev tools are pretty shit. And then also anything, and I don't know if I can curse, but I'm probably going to, apologies. But it's incredibly complicated to make 3D. There's a bunch of different tools, very arcane knowledge that is required for like any technical 3D artist, from segmentation to level of details to UV unwrapping to literally blocking out a mesh. Like at any given AAA studio, there's probably like hundreds of technical 3D artists who are working in like almost like a Ford-like automation line, just constantly making 3D art. It's a pain in the ass. So what AI does, and in what we've seen with other domains, is it helped abstracted the creation process to a new category of people who couldn't create before. Good examples of this include like Midjourney. I can now create pieces of art that I wouldn't have been able to make before. 11 Labs, I can now have any voice that I couldn't have had any time before. Or ChatGPT, I'm now writing blog posts in styles that I couldn't have before. The same could apply to 3D. So the people, the game directors, et cetera, who wanted to make 3D assets could now do it. Who couldn't have made code can now do it. It just levels it up. So it abstracts it to a new creation class as well as levels up the best creators in the world. So that's the first thing. The second thing, the first thing is like helping more creations just come into being. The second thing is making new creations that weren't possible before, new genres of types of gains and experiences. Examples of this include like personalized games. Say, for example, I don't know, I'm going through a township tale and the NPCs are specifically catered to help me out based off of what I'm having trouble with. I don't know how to chop a tree. They can observe that I'm having difficulty with it. I can ask it a question, or it just proactively responds with something like that. Or maybe, I don't know, they know my preference for people that I want to talk to. There's like a different style in how they talk back to me. Or maybe I like to only talk with female NPCs. We've seen a lot of interest in, say, people having romantic relationships with AIs of the opposite or same sex. Then there's other genres, which is just like the never-ending genre. There's like an unlimited amount of content that generates at runtime. This is a long way away. This is like level 5 generative AI and like the self-driving terminology, like the level 5 self-driving car. This is a long way away, but like where the world generates as you kind of go through it. Say, for example, I want to go into the basement of a township tale and have like new content spawn. It's really hard to go through the content treadmill constantly. If AI could generate it based off of what you want and your level and all these different contextual clues, that would be useful. And then the third is like some sort of genre that's around more social actions. So what I call the social engineering genre of experience. So examples of this, like in games historically, like games have been dictated by either mechanical skill or strategic skill. So you could either be really good at clicking someone's head in an FPS or really good at like getting to checkmate in chess. What you haven't really had to do in the past is Riz as a service. So you have to like Riz up, you know, any sort of character in a game in order to progress. You have to persuade them to do a certain action. You have to bully someone to do something. You have to, I don't know, like any sort of social engineering mastery curve. That is a new type of mastery curve that you can implement in games. So I'm excited for that whole new genre to come out. Some early examples of that include like, I don't know, tabletop role-playing games where people are, you know, like convincing the dungeon master to do something and create the game in that sort of manner. Or games like Diplomacy, where you have to convince your allies to do a certain action, but at the same time, also convince your enemies that you're not going to attack them. So like the social engineering mastery curve has existed in games and now is possible at scale through AI. So those are some of the things I'm excited about. More people being able to create, and then also these new sorts of genres.
Jack, what do you think AR VR for good is all about? That you've mentioned that you really want to progress the world. So how does AR VR play a role in that?
Yeah. So there's a few things. One is actually serenity. It's a denoise device. I think the world around us is too noisy. We're far over noised, either like literally audibly, like with motorcycles blaring, people in loud rooms, those sorts of things. On our phones, people are constantly asking for our attention. And then visually, like there's street signs and stuff everywhere that doesn't allow you to focus. VR is an immersive device. You can control exactly what you want. It has complete surround sound, 3D spatial audio, as well as controls exactly what you see. So if you wanted to do deep work, be fully immersed in what you want to do, you can achieve peace in VR. There's a lot of really good apps for this. Things like Maloka or or Trip for VR meditation. VR fitness apps are a great example of this. And then EdTech apps are another great example. It commands your attention. And thus, because it commands your attention, you have focus and you can learn. Focus is a requirement for learning at large. So that's one thing. And then also it just like generally pushes on the progression towards more authentic connection with computing. So our natural experience is in 3D. We are 3D people by nature. Biology is pretty hard to change. I think it's going to be hard to jury rig biology to be more like 2D than to create 3D computing. Computing moves much faster than biology, just like based off of their optimization functions. So I believe that if we really want to have like a good native experience with computing, it should be in 3D, and VR AR helps make that possible.
And do you think that AR VR has overlap with biology? Is Andreessen investing into things that are maybe doing research using AR VR in the medical space or biotech?
Yeah, so we're interested in this in a few angles. There's obviously the mental health component, which is like therapy in VR. One really cool company that I think some of your previous hosts have invested in, Interworld, is a great example of this. And then there's a few other examples that I've seen where there's been medical, there's been a kind of medical procedures done in VR. So it's like doctors using VR simulators to help them learn surgery. Or for example, say people with not Alzheimer's, but Parkinson's being able to use like hand tracking to better like fit Tetris pieces with their hands. And that actually helps them rebuild muscles in an effective way. So yeah, mind muscle connection is the right word. But yeah, so there's a million different examples. I mean, VR is an incredibly powerful tool. Any sort of physical action is best used in VR. So there's a whole bunch of different examples.
That's amazing. So essentially they see the they see the virtual hand, and then their brain is tricked into thinking that's their physical hand. And so it rewires their brain in certain ways for the Parkinson example.
Yeah. Like if you were doing Parkinson's treatment, I think there's a series, I don't know this exactly, so you're going to quote me on this because it's being recorded, but like, I'm pretty sure you do a series of exercises at home after like, say, any sort of doctor appointment, which is like, okay, now bend your hands like this, now like this, bring it up to your mouth slowly in a controlled fashion. VR does this and helps gamify that whole experience to a much greater extent. So it helps build that mind muscle connection for sure. Yeah.
Just on that, where then do you think the bluest ocean right now is for VR founders?
So the best opportunity, in my opinion, is the one that sits right in front of, it's been there for 2 years and it exists on current hardware, is the social VR market. There was like a foundational insight I had at Oculus. It wasn't even that foundational. It was just like literally like grouping our data by who our users were. Is that teenagers were the core audience of VR. Like they were the people who were playing it every day in their mom's basement. They play social apps every day. They build social bonds. They have higher retention, higher CLV, all these different things that make them an attractive and good like cohort that shows true product market fit. And there's a vast content undersupply of social apps in VR. Hence, I think there's only like 10 to 20 social VR apps at large on the Quest store. There's a lot more on App Lab, but they're all like pretty primitive. Even the best app, Gorilla Tag, was made by one person. So, and this is incredible retention, growth, et cetera, most popular by far of any VR app. So to say that any individual developer can't make something great in VR is anecdotally false. So I think there's a really large opportunity here. I think that even this is in spite of Oculus kind of working against the teenage audience, requiring Facebook logins and kind of mandatory names and age requirements and these sorts of things. Even Meta Horizons took a very long time to allow people who are under 18 to use the device. I think there's been a strong push against this younger audience in Facebook for a while, but recently I've been optimistic about them embracing the core audience of the device. So I think there's still a lot of opportunity here. And then generally at large with like other computing platforms, social tends to be the killer use case. So texting, email for like early phones, Facebook, those sorts of things are generally the biggest applications atop of these devices. And I still think there's an opportunity to make a winner there.
I was going to say, with that in mind, like, what's the significance for you for Roblox moving to VR,
It's
especially
massive.
for developers to create for that platform?
It's massive. When I was, so I kind of like, I love dying on hills. And the one hill that I died on when I was at Oculus was that we should be targeting a younger audience, or not targeting a younger, but embrace them, you know, stop pushing the gradient against them adopting the device. And the number one recommendation that I had was like, get Roblox on VR ASAP. It was already an Android game. It was not that hard of a port. Like Carmack was able to do some primitive MVP version in like almost a day, but we never got it over the hump. The same thing applied for Minecraft. Like these games are real killer apps. Like this is one of the big issues with VR was that there were no killer apps in VR. Beat Saber was an app from like 5-6 years ago and is still like the primary thing people associate VR with. Now the killer app is like Gorilla Tag, but like most people our age don't even know what Gorilla Tag is. It requires like us literally going on podcasts and talking about it. So I think something like a Roblox or Minecraft is absolutely massive for VR. It's going to be a system seller, in my opinion. And because there are so many people on mobile who will also experience some of their friends in VR, it will get them to want to play on the device. Like if I can do something in a Roblox world in VR, it's going to automatically make me cooler than my friends who are playing on mobile, and then they're going to want to get the device and play with me there. So I think it's really, really great for the ecosystem. I'm excited about that.
How does Apple's upcoming launch of the Vision Pro impact your investment thesis?
It's always been in our priors, so it hasn't impacted the thesis moving forward. I think what it does is it opens up the developer ecosystem for more productive apps, and then also XR and AR apps. The thing is that XR and AR apps are, I still think, a little far away. But if anyone has a unique idea on what the best XR or AR app atop of the Vision Pro might be, what the early Beat Saber might be for the Vision Pro, I think that's an interesting idea. You might be a little too early. I think like V2 might be the time where the device actually gets scale and you'll have like a self-sustaining ecosystem there where you can make money off of the users. And that, I don't know, maybe is like 2 years after the first Vision Pro, 1 year, maybe, I don't know. But I think what it does also is it accelerates the productivity ecosystem a little bit. So generally VR has gone across this like vice to productivity use case wave. It starts off as a vice, you know, porn, hardcore gaming, 3D media, that sort of thing. Then like slowly has shifted from like hardcore gaming to like less hardcore to like more casual gaming with the Quest. Then like media with the Go right before that. And then started to get more into like fitness or like social gaming. And then eventually the next step is like productivity. I think like individual developer productivity. And then the last step is enterprise productivity, which is going to be like meeting software and those sorts of things. Okay. I should bounce. I'm super late to my next call.
All right. We appreciate this very much. Thank you so
Yes.
much. We'll do a
There's so
longer
much
one.
value in there.
Cheers. Thanks for
That was
having me,
awesome.
guys.
Bye, Jack. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cool.
Bye, guys.
Peace. All right. That was awesome.